I'm Jeff Johnston, host of the Living Undeterred podcast. And once again, we're in for a great treat today. I'm extremely excited to share the story that I'm about to go through today, and a real great story about resiliency and, more importantly, living undeterred. And I think hearing this story will make everyone feel like, you know what, if this person can get through what they went through, then I certainly can. So Honesty Liller is from Richmond, Virginia. She's the CEO of the McShin Foundation, which we're hoping that we can get your organization to be a state partner for us on our tour next. I say next summer, but it's in 2 months. But Honesty, thank you very much for being here, and I'm looking forward to having our followers and listeners hear about your story.
Thank you for having me. Yeah, totally. It's our stories have power, and hopefully it'll help someone out there for sure. Thank you.
I saw a TV show on you, a couple minute blurb, and I'm like, wow, okay, 12 years old.
Yeah.
You smoked pot at 12 years old. I wasn't smoking pot at 12. Matter of fact, this is what's amazing about people that know me, because they know what happened to my son and my wife, and they kind of assume that, maybe I was into drugs as well. I've never done drugs my entire life. Now, I was a functional alcoholic since like 7th grade. And all the way up until I quit drinking in 2017, I drank 6 nights a week. And I was a compulsive gambler too. So I had addiction issues. I just never really was familiar with the drug road. Now my son went down that road, and you at 12 were doing what? Pot and crack cocaine at 16. Is that correct?
Yeah. When I was 12, my first drug was actually weed before alcohol. And then it was alcohol and LSD and shrooms for a few years. And then, I did a little bit of cocaine and crack when I was about 15-ish. That didn't last too long because I found heroin, shortly after that as well. So I have a 12-year-old son right now and a 20-year-old daughter, and I just couldn't see my son, hitting a crack pipe or even a bong or anything right now, to be honest with you. I was raised a little different for sure than my children are being raised in recovery as well. So, it definitely was a weird time, but also, to be honest, it was fun. When I was 12, before I found heroin, my life was fun. I was going to concerts and shows and fish shows, and sometimes, most of the time, I didn't make it into the concert, just the parking lot where the drugs were.
Right.
But I really did living the life that I, led at such a young age. It just, sometimes when I tell people my story, they're just like, how did you do that? Because they have kids, that are 12, 13, 14. And yeah, but it's my story.
So now you're CEO of the McShin Foundation. So let's start there, and then maybe we'll go back
Sure.
a little bit. But I don't like to live too long in the past. I certainly like to talk about your past as kind of a foundation to talk about, who you are today and what you've been through. It seems to me that many people in this mental health, substance abuse, addiction, industry, I guess we call it now, have personal stories. And you can see behind me, I have our map up of our tour. Right below it, I have a phrase. I'm not sure you can see that. I think the pictures are covering. It says, "Purpose becomes passion when it gets personal." And that's my mantra in my life. And everyone I meet, like you're passionate because your purpose was defined by something personal. And so your history with, your addiction got you to where you're at. But okay, so now you're CEO of the McShin Foundation. Tell me about what the McShin Foundation does, kind of where you're located, how many facilities, and what type of person do you guys try to help each day?
Sure. So the McShin Foundation is super cool because all of us here are in recovery. So all of my staff are in recovery. Most of them have lived in our housing. So what we are is a recovery community organization. We're the only accredited organization in the state of Virginia through CAPRIS, which is through Faces and Voices of Recovery, which is a nationally known organization. But we have right now 13 recovery homes. We're about to have 14 because we are full to the brim. And since COVID, it's been pretty packed since COVID hit. And we have where I'm sitting right now is my office, but we have a recovery center. So we have a 15,000 square foot recovery center. We're open 365 days a year. Individuals can come in, off the streets if they needed to utilize our groups, our facility. But most of the people that come through here during the day live in our housing. And we have jail programs, which means we're in 3 local jails 5 days a week, and we deliver peer-to-peer recovery support services to the inmates in there. Just we're hope dealers, hands
Hmm.
down. The biggest thing is we're hope dealers. We have the lived
Mm-hmm.
experience of addiction and recovery, and we're all just trying to do this thing together and educate ourselves as well. And we have family programming, and we have actually award winning. We need to get you on our podcast. Get in the Herd is our podcast that goes into 48 jails across the United States. So
Oh, wow.
on the tablets that the incarcerated have. And again, all of our followers and all the places that podcasts live. And but that's really is we're hope dealers. We're in recovery. I mean, we have a ton of policies, procedures, HR, a ton of different professionalisms here as well. But the biggest part is that authenticity. Being there, doing that. We keep it real. We keep it really real here at McShin. We don't sugarcoat too much unless we absolutely need to, but we all just kind of love each other. And the humans that we serve, you asked, is basically everyone. I mean, an individual can email, text, call, or show up here, and then Joyce is our intake coordinator, and she kind of develops a package to what that individual needs. So some people need a driver's license, some people need food, some people need clothes, some people just need a roof over their head depending on their situation. But like I said, since we're full, we have 128 beds, I do believe now, and we're getting ready
Oh,
for our
wow.
14th house. And these are all separate houses too. So
Hmm.
yeah, so we just try to individualize whatever that human needs when they come through our doors.
Where are you seeing the biggest challenges with people in recovery right now? I mean, I think COVID's been a huge one. Social media makes it difficult.
Mhm.
But I have to think that unfortunately, the demand and the need for what you're doing, I don't see it going down at all in the future. If anything, it's going to get, I want to say worse, but it's going to get more impactful to have organizations like yours, especially in regards to just overall mental health, lack of mental health that we have in our country.
Totally. I mean, COVID for sure. I mean, I've been doing this, gosh, almost 15 years. I'll have in May if I make it. But, the COVID, the isolation, the no hugs, the mask, like everything, like really went, everyone kind of just freaked out on March 2020. Like the world is going to end. What are we going to do? McShin never closed. We still took people every single day because addiction didn't stop because COVID started or nor has it
Right.
stopped. But yeah, that's the biggest thing I think is COVID and that isolation. But Virginia's opened up a lot, to be honest with you. But the other thing is social media. It's hard. The world is just different when I got into recovery. There wasn't as many services. There wasn't like all of this social media. But now there's like social media as far as like still that low self-esteem. Like I
Mm-hmm.
believe personally and professionally there's so much more to recovery than just stopping using drugs. It is like that
Oh,
inner
yeah.
healing and that inner love. And with social media it's just hard because so many people are addicted to likes and loves and who's gonna like my picture and why didn't they like, and it's like so much added,
Mm-hmm.
I believe, stress on the humans that are trying to just not use drugs anymore, but as far as services, I mean, we do pretty good here in Richmond as far as like wraparound services. I mean, there's definitely lack of funding, even though there's a ton of funding coming through the government and these opioid settlements. So hopefully
Mm-hmm.
it'll get better. But I mean, we're in the business of saving people, and it's just we're getting more houses and more houses, which is, I guess, good. But it's also, you kind of think on the other side, like, daggone, like, we had 3 houses when I lived here. And again, that was almost 15 years ago, and we're getting ready to open our 14th. So it's grown significantly throughout the years for sure. And the isolation and the no hugs, and like, there's nothing like, this is beautiful because COVID, the good thing, I've got to meet so many amazing humans
Oh,
in
yeah.
the country,
Yep.
but there's nothing like a hug. There's nothing like a hug
Yeah.
to me, but yeah.
So I saw something the other day, Honesty, that said that 60% of the people out there with alcohol problems increase their usage during the COVID lockdowns.
Hmm.
And the online sales of alcohol were up like
Hmm.
200% year over year. So, not only do we have these problems before all this, now and now you got the fentanyl issue. And that has just changed the whole paradigm. It used to be the substance abusers, the addicts were the ones that were dying. Today, it's the new paradigm. The people who've never done drugs are dying the first time.
Hmm.
So, I think we have a really tough haul ahead of us as a society to figure out ways to, I don't want to say fight this like a forest fire with, cups of water, but trying to change people's behavior before they become the addicts and the substance abusers. And in a way, it's kind of demoralizing to think that we have to keep building more and more facilities to handle more and more people. And there really seems no end in sight. And for me, I think the answer is to maybe start looking at 8, 9, 10, 12-year-old kids and really start there with trying to you know, um, get to them before they become addicts. So, I mean, when you guys are looking at your facility day to day, and I don't know how much of this you can divulge, but are most of it just your normal alcoholics, substance use abusers, or are these starting to get a little more hardcore? You're seeing people coming in with fentanyl overdoses and, you know, um, things like that.
Oh yeah, we've had the overdoses for years. It's just been nationally for the past few years. But yeah, I mean, our two number things are definitely opiates, fentanyl, heroin, oxycontin, and alcohol are the
Hmm.
two biggest things here at McShin. I mean, we have Narcan everywhere, all in our houses. Throughout
Right.
the years, our house leaders have had a Narcan, tons of different people. So yeah, I mean, it's huge here. And then since COVID, definitely more people are drinking more and like reaching out to me, like, moms that are home with their children, or, people are getting laid off, or, so many different situations. People are like asking for my advice, like, am I an alcoholic? And I don't really have the leeway to kind of say, hey,
Right.
yes, you're an alcoholic. I don't put labels on humans, but I do kind of talk it out with them to see, like, okay, what is going on in your home, in your life? Are you losing, things that are just all kinds of things that come with addiction. And normally they're like, yes, now my marriage is messed up, my kids, do whatever it just depends on the human that reaches out to me. But it is definitely huge here, and the opiate epidemic's been around for years, if you ask me. But people
Hmm.
were overdosing 10, 15 years ago, but now it's clearly gotten worse because of the oxycontin and everything. The past few, um, constantly we had a kid, we have a little detox room. It's just more of a comfortable room that they kind of lay in the dark, and have a
Right.
recliner. We feed them lots of sugar to kind of help them, but we have a relationship with a ASAM doctor in the community that will do a same day detox. So
Mm, okay.
we have linkage to mental health. We have CSACs. We have therapists. All of that we have linkage to. 9 times out of 10, it's the day that they come. It depends on their last use, obviously, with the detox.
Right.
But alcohol is booming right now. Yeah, I mean, you see commercials constantly that they deliver alcohol, and
Hmm.
it's just easy access. You can go any store basically, and there's alcohol. So I don't know. It's definitely the past 3 years have gotten so worse, and to piggyback on your thought about like the 12, 13-year olds, like I know you had interviewed Ann Moss Rogers, and I know she has a great curriculum to go into schools, and
Hmm.
she is a board member on a friend of ours nonprofit to End the Stigma, which they're going to be focusing on. It's a new nonprofit, so they're going to be focusing on the adolescents, like how to get them so they don't have to come to McShin. And I think the
Yeah.
biggest thing with that, just me raising my two children, my husband's in recovery as well, but is just like, we don't say like the Nancy Reagan era, no offense, but like don't do drugs. Like that's just not how we parent. Can I control
Hmm.
my kids from never using drugs? No, I'm not in denial of that. But we keep it real and explain to them like the humans that I'm surrounded with can sniff heroin one time, think it's heroin and it's fentanyl, and they die. And then they have, I don't know if you've seen these pill parties where they go to these
Oh yeah.
parties and they throw all these pills. And I'm just like, as a parent, parenting is number one, the hardest thing I've ever done in my entire life. But
Yeah.
it's like you're worried too, but it's also like you just keep it real with your children and have those conversations. And I think schools need to get a little bit better, and I'll probably get notes for this, but just a little bit better of like being open minded to get more services into the schools as far as
Hmm.
individuals with lived experience talking about, okay, yes, I'm a CEO and my life is awesome now, but when you read my book, like my childhood was not good, and it was
Hmm.
drug infested and a multitudes of trauma and all this stuff. Like, we need, younger folks, because we have an awesome, younger staff here as well, to get in there and talk to these, because I think also with the social media, there's so much low self-esteem going on. It's that's the suicide rates are going up and the drug use and alcohol use is going up. I think it's more of like having positive affirmations and positive influences in the school
Hmm.
system. That's not just sports. I mean, my son
Yeah.
is a sports player, but
Yeah.
just some more opportunities for these children to have, so they're not bored and could just go into a party to be with their friends. Just some fun, but more of it. And I know that all comes down to funding, obviously, and you know that's
I think about, and I have these conversations, every day now since I've been thrust into this club that I never asked to be a member of, and I certainly can never leave. And it seems to me there's a lot of still naive parents that just still think that this can't happen to my son or daughter or my husband or my wife. And, now, like I said, things have really shifted. And just a couple days ago, a female college soccer player for a Power Five school, one of the hardest colleges to get in, Stanford University, just took her own life 2 days ago. She was co-captain on the team, and she was actually had a saving defensive play as a goalkeeper. Is that what it's called in soccer? I don't know. Goaltender, maybe. I don't know.
that's me.
I'm a golfer, so.
Picture
But anyway,
baseball and basketball.
yeah, she took her life, which was just shocking to people. And I when I hear these stories, I inject myself into that story as a parent, and I think to myself, you know, I wonder, if these parents were aware that this woman was having these issues, and probably her friends weren't even aware. And you look at someone that's just so perfect from every lens you can look from, except they're not perfect in their own eyes. And that, unfortunately, the act of suicide is so finite that it's over, and there's no second chance. And that's why it's important in mental health, is that we can find the red flags, we can identify these things. And I bring that story up just because of the fragility of people today, that they seem like the quickest and easiest way to get through problems is to either do drugs or to take their own life. And so meeting people like Ann Moss Rogers and even Steve Phillips, I had him on the show a couple of weeks ago. He's from the UK. His son Jordan took his life. It's like all these things come together. And honestly, I think you'd probably certainly agree with this statement. Think of mental health as a wheel, and each spoke represents, depression, anxiety, drug abuse, maybe sex abuse, trauma, trying to survive from childhood trauma. all these spokes on the wheel all add up. And my biggest fear with industries that focus on one thing, like let's say you have an organization that just works with alcoholics,
Hmm.
is it's like, and I say this every podcast, and I'm trying to avoid saying it, but I do it because it's too easy of a metaphor. But it's the whack-a-mole idea. It's like you fix one thing, and then all these other moles pop up, and it's like if we look at these issues as co-contributing factors to somebody's decline in their mental health, and it's like you need to really shake these people to the core and change many things about them and get them to see themselves from a different lens, because that's my biggest fear in this mental health epidemic, is that we're chasing things like fentanyl, but then we're just kind of neglecting some of the other issues that could be out there. And obviously fentanyl is a little different because you're dead immediately. You can't fix problems when somebody's dead. So I think the first thing is try to get fentanyl off the streets. But I wanted to know what your thoughts are, kind of on how I stumbled through that paraphrase. But are you concerned at all that maybe sometimes we're just trying to fix too focused of an issue, that we neglect some other things that end up resurfacing later and become big problems for people, unattended issues, I guess?
Sure. And a lot of the federal funding and a lot of the funding is for opiates, right? So it's
Right,
hard
right,
when, you apply for a grant or the local CSBs, they have to strictly focus on, users of opiates, which is fine and lovely and beautiful and they're saving lives, but there's so much more. Meth is huge here
right.
now. Because it's getting harder, I guess, at the borders. I don't know, for the opiates and the fentanyl to get in. So it's a lot. So, I mean, one of the second best, the authenticity is number one. But the second is like we try to help every human that could, no matter what their drug they're addicted to. And I use drug because alcohol is a drug to me. So that's everything, wrapped up
Yeah.
in a nice, pretty pink bow. But there's like I said, there's so much more than just. And when you read my book, there's so much trauma that I just kind of pushed and pushed and pushed down for a long time. But also like healing yourself from the inside, and that's co-occurring. So we get a lot of humans that have co-occurring here. But again, having those
Hmm.
awesome partnerships and relationships in the community is what I wish for everyone around the world, to not just focus on, you're correct, just alcohol or just opiates or just cocaine and crack or just mental health, because all these organizations are doing beautiful things, but I think it's all there's so much more. Like you said, the little spokes on the wheel, there's so much more for me. And again, my
Hmm.
story and my addiction, there's so much more. I've been, to marriage therapy, and like there's so much that I just didn't resolve from childhood that I thought I did through like 12 step, and I didn't completely. So I needed to do some things a couple years ago, and I had 12 years in recovery at that time, because it's
Hmm.
always something, because it's a mental illness. The disease of addiction is identified as a mental illness. So, but I think, that our world could get a lot better if there are multiple services, in each organization. And I mean, there's a lot of organizations that do beautiful things here, but I don't know of one, like ours, where we have jail programs, we have same day access, we have so many different
Right.
things. But McShin, again, has been around 17 years. So we've grown and added all these things, because it's kind of like trial and error too, and sometimes we're not capable, I'll be frank with you, capable of taking major mental illness, coupled with, the mental illness of addiction. My staff and myself, we're just not equipped sometimes. So that's
Right.
when, our local partners need to, and sometimes that's difficult with the hospitals and stuff, because some just take them for like 2 days and then they street them, so it's a whole system of care that we're still kind of missing, with this epidemic or addiction as a whole.
I want to pick your brain on something now. I've been doing the podcast for a year,
Hmm.
actually a year and a couple months. And early on, I was very, like I said, when I got thrust into this area with substance abuse and addiction, I spent a lot of time on disease or choice.
Hmm.
And I would have guests on. I would ask them that question. Is addiction a disease or is addiction a choice? And then I finally realized, I think rephrasing this a little bit, reframing it, in it's obviously it's nature and nurture. It's not nature or nurture. But let me ask you that question that I've asked people in the past. If you had to pick, which one do you think's more of a contributing factor to someone's addiction? The disease model, where either they're born this way or they activated a gene that, once they had their first beer, now that gene was activated and they became an addict? Or do you think that people have more of a choice, of an ability to say, I'm simply going to not do this? Obviously, I think the disease element is, I guess, makes it easier to be less. It basically gives people an out. Hey, I don't have a choice. I have this thing inside of me that I have no choice, and you almost feel sorry for them. Whereas if you said you are empowered, you can make these choices, and someone isn't choosing to do it, then you almost don't feel sorry for them. It's like, well, you can quit if you want to. Well, so where do you lie on that? I'm just curious on your position, or maybe you guys don't take a position.
So, I mean, we kind of do, I guess. I believe addiction is a disease. I started doing had addictive behaviors when I was younger, before 12. So I believe, for me, I've always had it in some form or fashion before I even put drugs in me. And that's my story to tell. But I truly believe the disease of addiction, whether you start smoking weed or drinking in your backyard, even with your parents, sometimes they give you the wine or whatever for New Year's. Like, I believe people have addictive personalities and addictive brain cells in their brains, that something goes off for them. I know for me, for opiates specific, once I was 17, I remember the first day I used it. I remember how it made me feel. But from 17 to age 26, that's all I was focused on for 9 years. And it wasn't about being cool anymore. It wasn't about fitting in. It was about staying well and not being dope sick. And really, there was so much shame, trauma, guilt, pain, that I just kept using and using and using. I did not have a choice back then. I did not have a choice. I was physically and mentally addicted to it. Upon hundreds and thousands of people that have been through here throughout all the years. Moving forward past now, almost 15 years in recovery, I have a different perspective that some may or may not like or might disagree with. But me, as a woman, as a wife, as a mom, as a CEO, business owner, now an author, like, I feel like I have a choice to go use again. I used to hear people in 12-step meetings like, using isn't an option. A lot of people use that, and I've actually, I probably have said it earlier in recovery, but I don't use that because using is an option for me. I could use again, but I don't know if I'd have another recovery left in me, because I couldn't just go out and just drink or smoke weed. I would go, if I did that, and maybe last a day. I love heroin and opiates, so I would probably be the one getting the fentanyl and die immediately. So now I do have a choice. Like, I feel I'm educated enough about recovery. I have lived experiences, a multitude of things since I've been in recovery. So if I go use or take the actions to go use, drink, do anything, I know I can call my mentors and call women in my life, or talk to my husband, or talk to John, the co-founder, which is my boss of McShin. Like, I have a ton of options instead of just getting in my car and going to use. Even though I have the addictive personality and the addictive brain, I don't think about using ever. I more think of, like, just running away until I run out of gas, but on a tropical island somewhere. But,
Right.
in the beginning, no. Do I think I have a disease of addiction? 1000%. But do I think I have somewhat of a choice at this point? Yes, I truly do.
Is it possible that addiction itself is a disease, yet substance abuse is a choice?
No, because I don't believe that, because
And are they different? Are they different? Because
so
I feel like we're all addicted. I'm addicted to telling the truth. I'm addicted to working out. I'm
yeah,
addicted to watching college football on Saturday.
yeah.
But I I choose to abuse it. I could watch, 9 hours of college football. I could eat every bite of pizza. But I don't. So even though I'm addicted to things, I don't think the addiction itself is the problem. This is just my philosophy. I think it's when you start abusing. There are plenty of people that have alcohol and it never does any damage to anything around them.
Right.
And they could be addicted to alcohol and be perfectly fine, except obviously you get behind the wheel and things like that. But so I think one of the stigmas I'm trying to research on, not preach about, because I'm no expert. I'm just a dad from Iowa that has a couple dogs in the hunt that I've lost, humans that mean a lot to me. I think there's a possibility that we may be looking at this a little bit differently in the future, in that we just admit that everyone has a mental illness, everybody has addiction, and there's not just people that have addictions and those who don't, and we all have addictions. That's what makes us human. But it's the difference between the people that abuse the addictions. That's what causes the problems, not the addiction themselves. Am I wrong on that thinking, or do you think there's some hope in the way I'm looking at that for me?
It's totally hope. I mean, for sure. I mean, that philosophy, if we dug into that, nationally, I think that would be huge and hopefully prevent a lot of deaths, to be honest with you. But on the other I part of my recovery, I got addicted to exercising as well. As far as
Mm.
I have addictive brains, but it was because I didn't want my husband to look at another woman. It wasn't about I
Hmm.
like doing it and everything. It was more of that. I mean, I've worked through all
A
that.
self-confidence
Right.
thing,
I still
right?
exercise. I got my Peloton bike. I love it's my biggest part of my recovery and my pathway, to be honest with
Yeah.
you nowadays.
Yeah.
But I do it because I love it, not to worry about what he's looking at. You know what I mean? And that's a
Yeah.
lot
Yeah.
of
Yep.
inner work and stuff. But so we can all be addicted. You probably will get a lot of pushback from that because some people are
I
addicted
do.
to porn and all kinds of other
Yep.
stuff they can be addicted to, but they don't want to admit it, but also, well, I only watch porn twice a day and I'm not, that's what men do or whatever. You'll get so
Hmm.
much
Right.
with this
Right.
philosophy. I'm just, I'm sure you've already have, but I truly believe, for us that are chemically or, substance use disorders, that it is a little different as far as our lives go to crap most of the time. It isn't.
Yeah.
I mean, I know people that come in and they say, "Well, I'm a functioning alcoholic or whatever they identify as, or I haven't been to jail yet, or something like that." I have
Right.
never been to jail, but I
Yeah.
committed so many felonies that, again, I
Right.
had a guardian angel that put me in a place that I'm
Right.
help the humans that I help. So, I think everyone has their own kind of pathway, but I truly believe, addiction is addiction no matter what it is. And the biggest part of like needing to get help with your addiction is if some negative things or you're so focused on, like for me, I was focused on how it was a Monday. How could I fit in that run on a Saturday between dropping my daughter here? It
Hmm.
was more like, so I was like,
Hmm.
what the hell am I doing? Like, this is, I
Yeah.
had to talk to my, at that time, 12-step sponsor, because that was years ago. I've again worked through all that, but, and I had to talk to her. Like, this wasn't drugs anymore. This was me working out constantly or running or whatever. So,
You just shifted one addiction and replaced it with
totally.
another.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think I can always be that way. I don't know. As I'm getting older, to be honest, I've just I'm not the wisest, owl out there, but I've gotten just so much more simpler and like not really worrying about so many things that I was worried about. And a
Hmm.
lot of it revolved around like childhood stuff and low self-esteem still, and like expectations on what a woman is supposed to be and a CEO and
Yeah.
all of that. And I have all these years in recovery, so why is she having a meltdown in a 12-step meeting? Like, she's not
Hmm.
supposed to do that. So I had to knock, I guess, the glass ceilings, away from a lot of that and really be my vulnerability piece, to get out there. And then writing this book, I mean, it's pretty vulnerable. So
Well, one thing I learned in writing my book as well, and I'd certainly love to swap books with you.
okay.
I did mine a couple years ago. It's called "This One's for You: An Inspirational Journey Through Addiction, Death, and Meaning."
Okay.
Is that well, the vulnerability thing is huge. We could spend a whole hour just talking about that, but it's kind of the way that the ancient Stoics talked about reframing, and
Mhm.
you're always free to tell yourself a new story about your past. You're not obligated to, even if the past is accurate, you're not obligated to go back there and live in that time frame. You're free to just rewrite a new story. And I've kind of found little ways to trick my brain. So, I don't even call myself sober because that implies that I'm in a struggle. The word sobriety is like me against something. Well, I just choose not to drink today. And so that's my definition of sobriety. And then, in my book, I write about this where my son's descent into madness and ultimately I think had a lot to do with him dying was his addiction to Adderall at 16 that a doctor gave him because he was hyperactive and the label on his forehead was attention deficit disorder. And I think it's criminal that to this day we still use disorder to talk about attention deficit. I'm attention deficit. It's a superpower. I talk about this every show, everything I write about. A lot of what I do is because I am hyper-focused. Does it get me in trouble? Yeah, absolutely. My report cards in 5th grade, my parents would read them, little Jeff, he can't sit still. He's looking out the window, It's like, but my dad always said, Jeff, I'd rather have that in you than have you the other way around. I'd rather have a child that we had to curtail, to slow down, than to have one we had to try to motivate. And so I never looked at my attention deficit as anything bad. And I think the problem today is when a child has something, we put a label on it like attention deficit, tell them it's a disorder, and then on the rest of their life, they think that it is a disorder. And I don't think that we are obligated to believe what doctors tell us either. I think you have a right to say, you know what? You can tell my son that he has attention deficit, but I'm certainly not going to tell him it's a disorder. I think if more parents took that approach, I'm not telling you that we don't have to, like, my dad's a doctor, so I'm not criticizing the medical profession.
Yeah.
But, here's a doctor telling his own son, we're not going to give you Ritalin. We're going to tell you this is a superpower, Jeff. And, again, so it can be done. It can be done. And I think as a society, we really need to look at how we impose these limitations on people by using labels and stigmas and start when people ask me, what does changing the narrative mean, Jeff? When you're going on tour in a few months, you talk about changing the narrative. Well, one, changing the narrative is changing the labels and stigmas that we're putting on people for these things that really make us human. I believe we all have mental illnesses. I don't think mental illness is unique to you and not to me. We all do. But it's like a spectrum. It's like the autism spectrum. It's like there's high level mental illnesses like being psychopathic or being schizophrenia, things like that. And then there's the lower ones, the lower level attention deficit that seem to don't get you in trouble, except maybe you do things a little bit quicker. But I think every human being on the planet's ever existed has some attribute of a mental illness. Really, what is a mental illness? What is it? It's just maybe something that doesn't make you normal to the group of people you're with. I don't know. I don't know. Maybe I'm just lecturing here, but it's like I'm always wondering why we even call things like mental illness or all these words we use. And it almost sounds like if you say that, then that's implying that some people don't have mental illnesses.
Yeah, I mean, I think it all comes down to the medical professionals. They come up with all different new names
Right.
and
That's where I'm heading with this, I guess.
right. Yeah, so it's really not, I mean, I use recovery, a woman in recovery. I don't ever use I'm an addict. I don't ever say that anymore. Like it's all
Good.
about like how you speak. Everyone asks me all the time, why do you call our participant humans? Like the humans that we serve.
I heard you say that like 4 times.
Right. And I just love that. I don't know. I've just
I like it
evolved.
too.
Yeah, I've just evolved a lot, not just professionally but personally. And
Right.
there's a lot of things changing. It's 2022. There's so many things changing. There's so many movements going on. There's so many things that need to
Right.
change. And a human is a human to me, no matter what color, no matter what ethnicity, no matter what sex, no matter if they're questioning. That's just my opinion, and some people frown upon that too, but I don't care because this is the one life that I have, and this is the one life that I get to treat other humans
hmm
equally. So I don't know. I think it's all about how we talk and and I'm not perfect. I mean, I mess up and I say the wrong thing, and I'm
Yeah.
human. But I
Right.
think
Right.
if all of us took a little extra time to practice or a little extra time to be like empathetic to to humans. I just think this world would definitely get better, but unfortunately, there's so much involved as far as politics, money,
Yeah, yeah.
social, everything is social, and it's just a tough world. I mean, look at everything going on in our world right now. I mean, like these people
Hmm.
can't even feed their children right now in
Right.
Ukraine. So it's like, what the hell? So I'm just trying to do the best that I can with raising my kids and being, an example to other women like me. And I don't know, I think all of us just need to do a little bit better, to be honest with you. And that starts with us and it starts in our homes.
Amen to that. Certainly, kids will follow our lead,
Hmm.
basically. Last 5 minutes. Let's turn the spotlight on your
Okay.
book.
Okay.
What's the name of your book? And tell me a little bit about why you wrote the book, what your objection or what your objective was, what your main focus or market is, who you're trying to speak to, and then how can people get your book as well?
Sure. So it's called Scattered Pink, A Diary of a Woman in Recovery. It is all on Amazon. It's on Barnes and Noble. I like bookshop.org. They donate to local bookstores. So if you can do that, you just bookshop.org. I love that one. So the book. So I thought about it for like a year. I did my outline. I don't know. I just, again, like this 3 years ago kind of mark, a lot of things changed in my life that's in my book. But I just started following, like, taking a lot of negativity off of social media and really started focusing on following awesome, positive women and mentors. And I just started, reading a ton of books. And I've read throughout the years of recovery. I never read before. When I was using, I was not reading a book because I'd be
Right.
fine now.
Right.
But and then I just kind of, I don't know, I was like, I kind of want to share some things that we go through as humans, not just focus. I mean, it's a lot about McShin and recovery and addiction because that's a lot. It was 14 years of my life. So, but I really wanted to focus also on like the body image challenges, being a mom, being a woman, being a female CEO and the challenges that came and still kind of stir up a little sometimes, but how humans can overcome so many obstacles and live the happiest life that they can while they're on this planet. Like, again, the world, you never know what can happen. I can walk out and God forbid something happened to me. So like
Right.
it's a really super quick read. It's about my life. It's got some tips on like things that I've done, that weren't successful, but also things that have been super successful in my life. And just it's not a very it's just a tell-all, for the most part.
Hmm.
A lot of the younger stuff and addiction piece, it's a lot of what I could remember, to be honest, because
Yeah.
so many drugs. Jeez, and I think about that too. But I don't remember a lot, and it's just kind of bits and
Right.
pieces. And and I didn't put every single bit of my life in there, but
Sure.
I
Absolutely.
just wanted it. I like super quick, interesting humans to read about. So I just kind of
Right.
wanted it to be easy. It's paperback, so we can put it in the jails, hopefully get that approved. And then the ebook is on Amazon as well. So yeah, it was just, and my husband, I talked about it for like 2 years, and there's all that self doubt. It's gonna suck. No one's gonna buy it.
Oh yeah.
All that, so
Yeah, I get that too.
and it was like
Yep.
my husband looked at me, and this is no lie. He looked at me and said, "Just write the effing book." So like,
Yeah.
yeah. So like, I finally, he was sick of.
Yeah.
I mean, he loves me and supports me, and it's a lot about our relationship because we met in rehab 16 years ago, and we used
Oh wow.
together. Yeah. So, but now we're good. But I think it was more of God putting all these people in my life. So my editor slash publisher, because I'm doing hybrid self because I can't afford a big publisher. But so I'm just kind of doing stuff like this and trying to get it out there. Just
Yeah.
feeling it helps.
Yep.
I mean, it's geared towards women, obviously, because I am
Yep.
one and I'm a mom. But men can read it too. I mean, it's more of just like John, our co-founder, which you probably should get him on here one day, but he called me. I wanted him to read it, my daughter, which is 20, and my husband. I wanted all of them to read it before, I went
Right.
for it, right? Because it's got some stuff about all three of them. But,
Right.
called me. I was like, this needs to be a movie. You don't see many movies where there is like a happy ending as far as
Right.
and someone, ends up in jail or passes away or whatever, and it's not a lot of people that go through an organization and then become the CEO, and especially a female CEO, to be frank.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's it. Scattered Pink. It's, super quick, fun. It's funny too. It's got some funny stuff. I like,
You have to make light
I
of
have to.
the
Yeah.
seriousness, or it'll drive you
Yeah.
crazy. Well, listen, I really want to thank you for being on the
Thank
show.
you.
I want to say this, and I speak on behalf of everyone watching this, is that I think you're a great human.
Thank you so much. I appreciate
And I'm looking forward to meeting you when we come out on the
it.
tour. Hopefully the McShin Foundation would want to be our state partner for Virginia. I know we've got good connections there, and together we can make a difference and start to move the needle on some of these issues with mental health. And certainly not going to do it alone. So, with that, thank you very much for your time. And is there any quick way for people to reach you if they want to reach out to you personally?
Sure, just honesty@mcshin.org or honestyliller@gmail.com. Super easy.
Okay. Well, keep living undeterred, and thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.